Good evening, everyone. Hope you're doing great. Today we are learning Maseches Nedarim Daf Chaf, and we're starting at the beginning of a new parak. This parak is called Arba Nedarim because our first Mishnah speaks about 4 different types of Nedarim, and we're going to be focusing only on one of those 4 tonight. The Mishnah opens at the bottom of Chaf Beis at the new parak, Arba Nedarim B'Tiru Chachamim. There are 4 Nedarim that the Chachamim were matir, and they basically said, you don't have to worry about these. There's nothing at all to be concerned about. And Lamaisa, you didn't make a neder even if you made the neder. What are they? Nidre zeruzin, a neder that's made out of zerizus, out of excitement about something. That's how some of the maforshim here explain. We'll be discussing this more in the Gemara. And vinidre havoy, a neder that is made in an exaggerative fashion. I hereby promise to build a ladder up to Shammai. Vinidre shigagos, a neder that's made accidentally. Vinidre onsin, a neder where there was some type of ones involved, some type of uncontrolled feature. Nidre zeruzin ketzad. What is the example? Says the Mishnah of nidre zeruzin. Says the Gemara, ayamocher chayfetz ve'omar konam she'eni poches lecha min hasela. A person says that I'm not going to give any less than a certain amount. That's what the seller says. V'halomar konim she'eni mosef lecha shekel, and the buyer says, I won't even give you one more penny. Lamaisa, that's you got excited in the moment. Nobody really means that. 1 penny is the difference, 1 tiny shekel. That can't be. So the Gemara says that this is an example of that. And the Mishnah concludes at the top of Chaf Aleph, Amud Aleph, with the words, Shnehem rotzin b'shlosha dinarim. So we were talking about a sela, and a sela has 4 dinarim in it, as the Mefarish points out 3 lines from the bottom. So one person says, I won't do less than 4. One person says, I won't do more than 2. Allah Lamaisa, the Mishnah says, Shneim rotzin b'shlosha dinarim, that they can make the sale and transact on the level of 3 dinar, which they both had seemingly made a neder to not do. And again, the reason why that's the case is because it's nidre zeruzin. They're just speaking and just getting excited with the dialogue, and they're saying something that they don't even necessarily mean. The Gemara opens at the top of Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph, Arbon is right into Chachamim, and that's of course the framing of our Mishnah. What does the Gemara say? Amar le Rabbi Abba bar Moma le Rabbi Ami Amr Slan Mishmed Rabbi Yehuda Nisia Man Tana Arba Nedarim Rabbi Yehuda Hida Amr Mishum Rabbi Tarfon. So Rabbi Yehuda Nisia, who was the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, he said, who is the author of this Mishnah? And the Gemara says it must be Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Tarfon. How do we know this to be true? Because if you look at the Mishnah that we learned of the Brisa that we learned a couple of days ago, here's what you would see. We're 5 lines down. When is it that we're talking about Nazirus? Only if the Nazirus is accepted behafla in a very explicit fashion. But in our Mishnah, that wasn't a neder that was accepted in an explicit fashion. Rava Amar, that's not necessarily true. Only Rabbi Tarfon was of the opinion that Nazirus has to be given behafla, but the Rabbanan argued with him, and the Rabbanan were of the opinion that Nazirus doesn't have to be behafla. And maybe Rava says, Afilu tema Rabbanan. Miktani Shnehem Ratzu, looking at the very first words on the page, does it say that Shnehem Ratzu, that each of them really wanted this? No, Shnehem Rotzin, that they both want. In other words, they're really trying to get to a sale. They're trying to get to a conclusion where they're on the same exact page. On the Maisa, at the end of the day, they couldn't totally agree. And all of the negotiations that they had said along the way, those negotiations were deemed to be irrelevant. Amar le Ravina le Ravashi. Ravina says to Ravashi, Amar lo tfei sela. If a person says that I'm not going to sell to you for even, I'm not going to buy from you for even a little bit more than a sela. V'hala amar bacher mishakel. I'm not going to buy from you unless it's a little bit less than that amount. Says the Gemara, is that case similar to our case? Do we say nidra habe? Is it considered a neder? O zeruzin habe? Or would it be like our Mishnah, which refers to this as nidre zeruzin, jehitu chachamim, in which case there is no neder in place? The Gemara responds, Amarle Tanina, we already learned this. We're about 8 lines from the bottom of Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph, and the Gemara says as follows in a brisa. A person was refusing to eat by one of his friend's houses. I make a commitment that I won't enter your house. Not even one drop of anything cold, liquid in your house, nothing. What's the halacha if you make such a comment? You're just trying to be sharp. It's obvious you're not trying to make a neder, and therefore, literally kanis the beso, no problem. Your neder has no binding at all. You're allowed to walk into the person's house, and even drink cold liquids. No problem. Mamash, you did nothing. What was really going on in the person's mind? I don't want to have a meal with you at your house. I don't want to go in and grab a Reese's peanut butter cup, a cup of water, a cup of Coke. No problem. That's fine. Obviously, your intent was only about the Suda. The Amai. Why would that be the case? After all, the tipas tzonen kama. Why would we assume that when he said tipas tzonen, which is a very specific form of neder, why would we assume that he then is restricting himself only from a meal, but that the cold water is mutter to drink? That doesn't make any sense. Says the Gemara. The reason why is because that is, as we would say in another frame, but it applies here. It's lashon b'nei adam. It's the way people talk. I'm going to come to your house. I'm not even going to take a drink of water. That's not what the person means. It's just not the way things are. And in the Gemara's language, 2 lines from the bottom, this is a way that people talk. So hachanami, here too also by our Mishnah, we should also say mishtae inish hachi. It's just the way that people talk. It says the Gemara Amar Lei, turning to the top of Daf from the base, midami. Are these two cases similar? Gabe tzonen, in regards to the case of tzonen, where a person says konam she, that I'm not going to drink any cold water, even a drop of cold water. But says the Gemara, in regards to tzaddikim, omer ma'at v'osin harbe, because they're talmidei chachamim, these tzaddikim, and they know what they're talking about. Because that's true, they will be very specific with their language. And what they can accomplish in that one sentence is, I'm going to say I won't even have a drink of water. And by definition, it therefore means that I won't be able to partake in anything in your house. And the conversation should be over. So by the tzaddikim who they say me'at and osin harbe, that's a reason to believe in them. But hacha, in our case, sveikahu. In our case, we're not really sure what the case is. Dilma pachos misela, v'yoser al shekel ka'amar, v'zeruzin habe. Maybe in regards to the case of the people who are fighting about the transaction, maybe there's a suffix, there's an element of suffix as to what they actually mean. Odilma dafka ka'amar v'nitra habe. Were they being general or were they being specific? Was their intent just to be exaggerative or to embellish? Or were they being very halachic in the nature of their commitment? I will not pay more than $4.95. So the Gemara says, Tibai, we're not 100% sure. Again, as mentioned, Tibai is the Maseches Nedarim's version of a teku. The Gemara says, 5-6 lines down, Chaf Aleph in the base, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav Asi, Arba Nedarim Halalu, Tzrichim She'ela L'chacham. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav Asi says something very strange. He says the 4 Nedarim in our Mishnah, the ones that our Mishnah says that don't need anything at all because they don't even count. But Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of Rav Asi, says they do count and they need to be mater neder. So that's a huge machlokas. And the Gemara says, Ki Amrisa Kame de Shmuel. When Rabbi Yehuda brought this to Shmuel, because as we know, he learned both under Rav and Shmuel. That's why we often see the phrases of Rabbi Yehuda Rav, Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel. It says the Gemara, Ki Amrisa Kame de Shmuel, when they said what Rabbi Yehuda said in front of Shmuel, Amar, Tani Arba Nedarim Hitiru Chachamim. Ve'at Amar Strichen She'ela L'Chacham. You've completely misquoted the Mishnah. Our Mishnah says these are the 4 Nedarim that Hitiru Chachamim. There's nothing to do. And you, Yehuda, are saying that you need to actually, you need to do Ataras Nedarim? Which one is it? There's the Gemara, Rav Yosef Masnid Lal Hashmaisa V'Hai Loshna. Rav Yosef relearned this statement of Rav Yehuda. Really, what does it say? Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Asi, Ein Chacham Rishar Lahatir, Ela Ke'ein Arba Nedarim Halav. It's giving parameters for when a dayan is able to be matir neder. In other words, we're getting an instruction from our Mishnah, and Rabbi Yehuda is just expanding our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says these are the 4 Nedarim that Hitiru Chacham. What is Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav Asi saying? Absolutely true. Not only is that the case that they are, that these are the 4 cases in our Mishnah are Hitiru Chacham, but any case that looks like these cases. So these are the samples, they're the paradigms that Dayanim can use to be matir neder. So he wasn't going against our Mishnah at all, just a misread. Rabbi Yosef clarifies exactly how to understand it. Generationally, that also makes a little bit of sense. Rabbi Yosef was the 3rd century Amora. He probably, if he didn't know Shmuel, but he knew who he was because he was 25 years younger, give or take, than Shmuel was. They knew him. He probably even knew Yehuda. They were probably 50 years apart, 40 years apart. So it was probably a sugya that he had discussed, and he probably knew both of them. Savar, one of the things that we can extract from this sugya is, behold, ein poshen becharata, is that we don't try to be matir neder in a case like this becharata. And there was a case, says the Gemara, a third of the way down, actually halfway down on Chafalot in the base. A person came over to Rav Huna with a neder that they had made. Amar le libcha Allah. He said to him, when you made this neder, was your heart into it? Did you really want this neder to take effect? Amar le lo. He says no. So the halacha is v'shaya, and then we remove that neder. That's called charata. Somebody came to Rabbi Baruch Huna. They had also made a neder, and they were starting to show some regret. Amar le, he says to me, if there were 10 people in front of you who would have been able to appease you with whatever was causing you to make the neder in the first place, would you still have made the neder? Amar le lo. He says, no, I would not have done that. The Tiru undid that neder as well. And there's a brisa to support these claims as well. Tanya Rabbi Huda Omer. This is a different Rabbi Huda. It's a brisa. This Rabbi Huda can't be the same Rabbi Huda that was the Talmud of Shmuel, because the Talmud of Shmuel was not a Talmud. This is a brisa. So it's important to hold cup with who's who. It's not the same people. Rabbi Huda Omer lo Adam leib ze alecha. Was your heart into this? Amar lo lav and matir nasa. Same as before, except now that it's found in the Tanaim, it's even a stronger support. 2/3 of the way down, Rabbi Shmuel ben Yossi Omer Rabbi Shulavi. Omer lo Adam. Ilu hayu asara b'nei Adam shefaysuch bo sufram min adar. Same case as before. If you had 10 people that would have appeased you of the concerns that caused you to make the neder in the first place, would you have still made the neder? And the Gemara says, I would not have. Amar lav matir nosor. He says, no, I would never have made the neder under those circumstances. If people would ever take care of my concerns. Shalom Yisrael, I would never have made the neder. The Gemara now says at the parentheses, 8 lines from the bottom, Simen, Asi, Ve'elazar, Yochanan, Ve'Yamai. These are people's names, of course, and they are obviously going to be in this sequence. This was just a mnemonic that the Gemara used, or possibly even that just the editors used. Hard to know when these were added. That requires some digging in the and the Gemara says as follows. Somebody showed up by Ravasi. Amarle, Kadu, Tahis. Do you regret what you just said? Like kadu, like this, tahis, to be tohet, to question. Do you question what you just said? Amarle, lo, would I not question what I just said? I wish I didn't trap myself. But even that alone, it's a backhanded language, visharya. This is difficult because how do you know when the word below is a bitmiya, is a question mark, like hey hashela, like would it not be lo or lo? No, the answer is no. So here the Gemara seems to, we know what it is because of the answer, the Sharia. So obviously we see that this question is structured as a bitmiya. Another case, remember our mnemonic, we started with Asi, we're moving on to Elazar. Says the Gemara, did you really want to make this neder? Had they not been driving me crazy, I would have never said anything in the first place. I probably have done that in frustration as well with some of my kids. I promise you, I'm going to give you this consequence. I hope I haven't done that in a way where I didn't fulfill. I hope I haven't done it at all. Says the Gemara, then if that's the case, it should be as you wish. In other words, we're going to undo the nether. One of the things that we're seeing as a theme in this Gemara is that your nether, this whole daf, the beginning of the Mishnah, from the beginning of the Mishnah to here, is that you can make a nether until you're blue in the face, but there has to be an element of ratzah, an element of bais, of kavana, that I actually want this to take place. Another story, Ahi Itza, the Idarta Labrata. There was a woman who made a nether that her own daughter couldn't get hanal from her. So the comment of Yochanan, and of course in the parentheses above, Yochanan was the third one, and this is where he's found. Amar la, ilo habayadas. If you would have known the Amrin, Migirtich Allah Devartech, people are going to talk about your daughter. Ilulo chamas ba ima milan te aziva bichdi lo adart miadarta. If you would have known that your daughter was going to be struggling so much and people would be talking about her because of what you did, would you have made them with her? Amrle, no, I would not have been so concerned, and therefore the Sharia. Let's learn a little bit more and then we'll stop. The last case is Barbarate de Rabbi Yanai. And again, if you scan back in the parentheses, the mnemonic that we learned before, Yanai was the last one. Barbarate de Rabbi Yanai Saba, the son of the daughter of Rabbi Yanai Saba. Also, the Kama de Rabbi Yanai Saba, she came to ask a Shaila. Omar Lane, she had a Shaila about a neder. He said to her, "You have a yadas, the paschin pin kasla. If you would have known it, they would have opened the ledger. Not the ledger down here, but the ledger upstairs. Had you known that they were going to look into your ledger upstairs about this neder, and they were going to be so picky with you, and now they say, wow, she's so careful with her language over here by the neder. Let's see what the rest of her flaws are." And that's what's going on in Shemaim. So Amar Leilo, she said, no, I would not have done that. Sorry, it's the son of, it's not she, it's he. And then the Gemara says, Visharya, and lastly, it's just really the summation of today, which is Amar Rabbi Abba Mikra. What's the pasuk that we are talking about? The pasuk says, "Va'achar Nedarim levakir." The pasuk Anan lo paschinan le baha. Even though Rabbi Yanai was matir neder for her, we would not be matir neder in such a case. She was matir neder by saying that I'm willing to have them look into my books upstairs, the Sifrei Ba'im the Mason, the Sifrei Ba'im, whichever books they open, I don't know. She said she was willing, but really that's not Lamaisa. That's not what we do. We don't bring upon ourselves those kinds of category where Kodesh Baruch Hu can be mekatrig us. So again, let's just summarize broadly. What we're learning from our Mishnah, there are types of Nedarim that even if you make them on the regular, they're irrelevant. There has to be a level of kavanah, a level of ratzon in regards to the neder that you're making. And if you do make a neder and you really didn't want to do it, and it's not similar enough to our Mishnah in that it's automatically not a neder, then we're able to do charata. And charata basically says, if only I would have known X, Y, or Z, then the neder would not be chal. We'll stop right here, 8 lines down on Chaf Beis Amud Aleph, and we'll pick up in Yirtzeh Hashem Wednesday night in person. Wishing you all a beautiful night.